Hello and welcome to the fourth meeting of the first session of the 11th Parliament under the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica. This meeting has been called today to primarily deal with the election of a new president of Dominica. The government of Dominica has nominated Mrs. Sylvanie Burton, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization and Kalinago Upliftment. Mrs. Burton is a public officer of long standing. She has been a district development officer through the local government department. She has also been the permanent secretary in several ministries, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Community Development, and she's now serving in the Ministry of Environment. Mrs. Burton is a mother of two, and she is married. She's also a devout Catholic. Mrs. Burton, should the nomination go through and be elected, would become the first woman to be president of Dominica, and importantly so, the first person of Kalinago descent to be president of Dominica. This morning, I heard that Prime Minister Skerrit said that the leader of the opposition has expressed that she will not support the nomination of the government, and as such, an election for the position of president will ensue. The Constitution of Dominica dictates the procedures that are to be followed during the election of a president. If the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition agree on a joint nominee, that person is duly elected. If the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition cannot agree on a nominee, the House will adjourn for 14 days, and any three members of the House may nominate a person for the position of President of Dominica. His Excellency the President, Charles Angelo Savran, will demit office on October 1, having served 2 terms as President. Mr. Savran completes his long stint as a public officer, serving in several capacities, whether it's as teacher, diplomat, government minister, and of course, the office of president. Today's sitting will also hear obituary remarks following the passing of Speaker Emerita, Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, who passed away at the end of August last month, and also the former parliamentary representative for the Salibia constituency, of course, which encompasses the Kalinago territory, Atkinson, Antrizal, and parts of Concord, Mr. Francois Barry. So, this is what is primarily taking place at this sitting of Parliament. This sitting of Parliament has been summoned to primarily deal with the election of a president of Dominica, because the term of President Charles Savran comes to an end on October 1, 2023. Of course, welcome to live coverage of this sitting of Parliament. The Government Information Service, of course, brings live coverage of every sitting of the Parliament. We too at the Government Information Service express its deepest condolences to the family and friends of the late and Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, former Speaker of the House or Speaker Emerita of the House of Assembly, and former parliamentary representative for the Salibia constituency, Honorable Francois Barry. The Speaker should make his entrance at any time. We have seen the arrival of a number of parliamentarians, members of the government side. I have not seen members of the opposition as yet, but a number of members of the government side are already present, and very soon we will see the commencement of the House of Assembly. So this is all for our preamble here for Parliament. We await the start of the House any moment from now, should be at about 10 o'clock.
Almighty God, who in thy infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of rulers and councils for the welfare of society and the just government of men, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us thy servants whom thou hast been pleased to call to performance of such important trusts in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Let thy blessing descend upon us here in this parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in thy presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. All which we ask in the name and for the sake of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the order paper be adopted.
I beg to second, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the order paper be adopted. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Yeah, hold on, member. Yeah, take your seat, please. Yeah, hold on, just 1 second. Yes, members, I would like to just announce formally to this honorable house on the passing of two members or late members of this honorable house, the late Honorable Francois, the member for Salibia constituency from 1993 to 2000, and the late Honorable Alex Boyd Knights, Speaker Emerita, who served as Speaker from 2000 to 2020. I would like us to stand for a moment of silence in recognition of the passing of these two members. Okay. Yes. Yes, honorable member, you on your feet, you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in remembrance of a titan of legislation and justice in our nation, Speaker Alex Boyd Knights. Her legacy, spanning 2 decades as the longest serving Speaker in our nation's history, speaks of a leader who was tough but unfailingly fair. As a woman, her unwavering dedication to her country has deeply resonated with me. Through her tireless advocacy for women's rights, children's welfare, and the marginalized, she became a beacon of hope and inspiration to countless women, including myself. I remember as a young parliamentarian in 2016, she made an effort to give me guidance and exposure to training to understand my role and functions of Parliament. As an attorney, her passion for helping the less fortunate was evident in her willingness to do work pro bono. And in discussions with my sister, she mentioned to me the number of women she would have helped secure shelter, women in abusive relationships, and a consistent display of genuine interest in the well-being of a clientele. Her chairmanship of the Commonwealth Women Parliamentarian Committee and an influential publication on female parliamentarians in Dominica further underscore her impact. In recognition of her service, she was amply named Speaker Emerita in 2020. Alex Boyd Knight exemplified that true leadership lies in service, compassion, and commitment. I will remember her culinary class on Anu Pali. May her legacy inspire us all. May her soul rest in peace. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I wish first of all to extend our condolences to the family and relatives of Mr. Francois Barry, who passed away a few days ago. Former Member of Parliament for the Salivia constituency and former Parliamentary Secretary in the 1995-2000 ULP government. I had the occasion to engage him a number of times on various issues, and up until recently, as a matter of fact, just before he died. I want to extend to his wife and to his 3 children, one of whom I actually taught at the college. I want to extend on behalf of myself, my family, and of course the government side, our sincere condolences to him. Very, very simple guy, very, very jovial. One of the things that he'll be remembered for, Mr. Speaker, in his jovial spirit is when he said to the voters of the Salivia constituency, you guys do not want Barry, but you want Barry water. At that 2000 general elections campaign. And so that is one of the fun expressions that many of us would remember. So we wish his family well this time, his wife in particular, and we stand in total solidarity with her and the family and indeed the entire Salivia constituency. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me further to express and to place in the records of the Parliament my sincere condolences to the family of the late Speaker Emerita, Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, who really is a true champion of a woman, and one who has no doubt made an indelible mark on the minds and the hearts of so many of us in this country. Someone who stayed in this country and who helped in advancing the socio-economic development of Dominica. And when you look at issues of human rights, issues of women's rights, the rights of children, she was the most respected and sincere, consistent voice in that regard. There are some who will speak from time to time on this issue of particular motivation, but it was an intrinsic motivation on her part, a lifelong commitment to fighting the cause of the less fortunate, downtrodden among us. And so I remember for this, in my own interactions with her, and her strong advocacy on ensuring that we brought to Parliament stronger legislation to deal with women's rights and protection of women and children's rights. And over the years, we have been able to bring stronger legislation to the Parliament. And earlier this year, I believe in April of this year, we brought in 5 different bills that will pass into law, in large measure because of her urging and her commitment to this. Mr. Speaker, in the courts, in the law, she represented many people, especially guiding people on divorce issues. I know that most of her cases, when it came to divorce issues, she would represent women But some men started hearing how good she was, and they started going to her. He said, if you go to divorce, you say, well, check Alex Boyd, nice boy, you know. And so men started going to her because I mean, there's nobody, you know, there's no woman I believe that men were scared of in the courts on any issue because she was well read, she was very organized, and she was very disciplined and focused on her mission. And I think many of us, as a matter of fact, all of us, um, would, could learn and would have learned many things, many characteristics from her that we can use in our daily lives as we pursue this, our efforts at making a contribution. Regionally, globally, I can say whenever I would meet a parliamentarian, especially a speaker or the clerk of the house in the UK or from Africa or the Caribbean, one of the first people they would ask me about is Alex Boyd, the Speaker of Dominica, and highlighting her contribution. And many times she would be invited to conferences around the world. And if she says that she can't attend, there'll be a persistent request for her to reconsider her non-attendance because she would represent issues and she would speak to issues that the average person would not want to because of some fear or otherwise. But she was selfless, she was determined, she was bold in her in her in her efforts at representing issues. In Parliament, I believe that only two parliamentarians would have served the entire time with her in Parliament. That's myself and Honorable Austri. Others would have come from time to time, but only two of us would have served. We came in the same time with her in 2000, and Austri and I would have been there. Though Blackmore is of recent vintage. Yeah, Blackmore is of recent vintage. So, um, but only two of us. Yeah. Some people would have had issue with her. Not because of her personality, but because of her interpretation of the standing orders and the application of it. And I always say to parliamentarians, and I say to the country as a whole, a country is run by laws and not by men and women. Likewise, the parliament is guided by the standing order. And that's why it is so important that parliamentarians read the standing orders and acquaint themselves with the standing orders. And where you have issues of interpretation, there are people who can assist you with it. But you cannot interpret the standing orders how you want it to be or how you think it should be. It is written, it is there, and therefore you have to follow it. So in her ruling, she relied on the standing orders. And even there are times, Mr. Speaker, just to let things proceed, I, as the leader of the House, would go to Speaker Emerita to our office and say, "Mr. Speaker, you should let that one pass." And so on. Say, no. These are the rules. These are the rules. We have to follow the rules. But what many people did not know also, not even her grandson knew that, or her daughter knew that. When I said so to her daughter when I visited the house at Trafalgar, that she not only relied on her interpretation of the rules, but she also made contact with counterparts in the Caribbean, in Africa, and in the UK to draw to the attention the issue and to seek their further counsel on whether she was acting accordingly or not. This is why when matters went to court, she won all the cases that were taken to court in respect to her interpretation of the rules, because all her bases were covered and she was in conformity, her actions were in conformity with the rules. You understand? And from a personal level, the first time I met Madam Speaker was in 1999 when Rosie Douglas called me and asked me, where am I? And I told him when, and he picked me up. And I did not know we were going to Alex Boyd Knight's home, but we went there. And we started speaking about the elections, campaign and coming up and so forth. And Rosie was trying to get her to be part of the political advisory group that Rose was putting together at the time. And as you see, she did in fact speak on the platform in 2000 at a couple of our rallies, and was very strident with that. I would have gone to her house, as I said publicly, many times. The last time I was there, I believe, was the inauguration of her kitchen. She had redone her kitchen, and and um, and she invited me, and one or two other people, special people. Yeah, one or two other special people. We were there, and she had cooked, and she baked a usual cake and a sorrel, and we sat there for quite a while, partaking in this, and stood in awe of what she had done, the transformation of a kitchen. Um, and so I have known her on different levels, and so for me it was very difficult to have accepted the news of her passing, but that's life. The Lord gave her, He'll take away. Um, blessed be His name, and so we accept God's work. So I want to extend my heartfelt, sincere condolences to her daughters, her grandchildren, in particular our Deputy Speaker, Honorable Rule, and her relatives, and to let them know that we stand in prayerful and physical solidarity with all of them at this time. It's difficult because I know this family to be very close and closely knit, and so it's even more difficult when there is a strong personal relationship among family members, and that existed in the at the home of the matriarch, Alex Boyd Knight, Speaker Emeritus, and so we mourn death, and there's no doubt this country has lost a giant of a woman, a Dominican to the bone, and someone who has made tremendous contribution to Dominica. And on issues of botany and horticulture, she really was involved in so many things, and sharing her culinary arts with so many of us, so many people across Dominica and the region and the world. So there's so many things that one can say about Alex Boyd Knight, Speaker Emeritus, that time will not allow me to highlight. And one of the things I want to say to Dominicans in general, another thing that one can take from her, is that she became a lawyer in a mature state of a life. She had children already, grown, and she decided she wanted to pursue her career in law to be in a better position to advance her causes, the causes of women's rights, the causes of children's rights, the causes of human rights. And she was able to successfully pursue this. So it's important for all of us, men and women, but women in particular, that you only stop learning when you're dead. And you must always avail yourselves to opportunities to skill yourself, reskill yourself, educate yourself, but the education which you receive, the skill that you receive, must be placed at the disposal of the people who you serve. And the country has given to you what you have achieved. And so we mourn the death. We in the government are recognizing her, not only in life by awarding her the second highest award in the country, but also extending to her a state funeral, and the state funeral is only set aside for presidents sitting and past, prime ministers both sitting and past. And I felt that Alex Boyd Knight sat at the center of his category, and that a state funeral is befitting of her contribution to Dominica, and that the state will honor her in that way. And of course, the state funeral is set for September 25th. May her soul and the souls of the virtual departed rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to pay tribute to the late great Speaker Alex Boyd Knight. I'm going to shock some people, because Mr. Speaker, when I was just about 14 years old, my adopted mother fell sick and had to receive medical attention away. While she was receiving medical attention in St. Lucia, she was cared for by her friend, Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, and the members of her family. Honorable Alex Boyd Knight was one of the first people to encourage me to overcome my concern about what people thought about my voice. She kept saying to me, "Your quality of writing is not reflected in your oral language." You see, Mr. Speaker, I was afraid to speak some words because I just could not get the sound of the vowel blends. For all debates, I did the writing and another person presented. Sometimes we won by less than 10 points. Sometimes we lost. Then this debate came. Country life is better than tongue life. She looked at my points and she said, "You should present." I did not want to squeeze my friend out, but when she got sick on the day of the debate, I presented, and this time we won a little bigger. Then it was, girls should be given the same amount of freedom as boys. Well, Mr. Speaker, we disintegrated the boys on this one. Madam Speaker once said to me, "You have to sing with a choir, never on your own." But I still take my chances in church, and I do some special. But I remember she also said, "One day you will speak and people will listen because your voice is like a spicy honey barbecue sauce." I didn't know what that was at the time, but I knew that this lady had a special relationship with food. Madam Speaker was convinced that I would be a lawyer. While Dame Mary Eugenia Charles argued, I received some politicians, that I would be a marketing sales representative, and Sir Brian Allen knew I'd be a counselor. None of them won, yet all of them won, because here I stand today, all of these in one package, a pal record. So I have known this wonderful woman for a long time. But Mr. Speaker, when my adopted mother died, Madam Speaker and I were separated. Although we crossed paths and we shared warm smiles and greetings, I never told her who I was. When I showed up on the political platform, she called me in one day in her office right over here to encourage me and to tell me how much I reminded her of a young girl she knew a long, long time ago. We were happy to meet again. The rest of the story is for another time. Madam Speaker was an exceptional teacher whose commitment to promoting success and excellence in education is an inspiration. And when it was rare and almost unheard of, she had a culinary school in St. Lucia, Knight's Cookery School. As I grandchild, if I make a mistake, he'll tell me. Knight's Cookery School. Madam Speaker was a very successful lawyer who fought for the rights of women and their protection from all types of violence. And when women were in desperate situations, money was never an issue. Her concern was the safety of this woman and how she would receive support for her children. She fought in the interest of girls to ensure their safety, their progress, fair access to all opportunities. I am sure many women will be ever so thankful for all the help, support, and guidance she gave to them over the years. And I am sure many gave her flowers while she was alive for her outstanding advice and effort. Madam Speaker was a trailblazer in the political field. She took many hard hits from many mean men and women too on the political platform, but she also gave some good verbal jabs and body slams at the right time in the right way. It is her perseverance and endurance that inspired me to stand tall despite the attack. All the ladies who now sit in Parliament or a salute to the late great Alex Boyd Knights for paving the way. And even as a team, we appreciate everything she did for us. She inspired us to strive to do our jobs better by working as a team towards achieving our goals. Honorable Knight was a proud Dominican woman who not only celebrated our culture and heritage, but gave years of selfless service to our great country, and she led by example. I think I speak for all my colleagues when I say we are incredibly lucky to be among those trained during the time of an icon like Madam Speaker. We will be forever thankful for the knowledge and skill she passed on to us as she helped us prepare as leaders and mentors. Some of the things she taught me include, when you see a woman taking it upon herself to share her story and to let herself be vulnerable, acknowledge this act of bravery because it takes courage for a woman who has been violated to speak out. Embrace people, especially men who complement the woman mind and soul, not just her body. We all like to be told we are beautiful, but we also need to hear we are brilliant, kind, dedicated, and strong. Recognize and guard against the unconscious biases you may have against other women based on their race, their age, their physical ability, their body type, and their socio-economic background. Offer support to all women, including those you see as strong. Sometimes, empowering yourself means stepping back and allowing somebody else to go in the spotlight. And ladies should be seen and not heard. Alex Boyd Knight was a woman for other women. That is partly why I am a woman who supports another woman as a nominee for the position of president. That's because it's just part of me. Mr. Speaker, we wish Madam Speaker had many more years to spend with us. But it's appointed unto man, and when the appointment comes, you got to go. But she was special to all of us. We appreciated her, and we highly appreciate her, and we will greatly miss her. Her words of wisdom and encouragement will be an inspiration to us for a long time. She has become a beacon of strength and knowledge. If there were more people like her, the world would be a much better place. Many people, a much better place. Many people are who they are, in no small part, thanks to her effort, knowledge, and skills. I join my colleagues in appreciating the knowledge Madam Speaker has imparted to us. We will always remember her boldness and selflessness. The wisdom she has passed on to us will leave a lasting impression. Leaders like her are few and far between. Her knowledge, wisdom, vision, and effort to turn this world into a place of hope and peace, especially for women and girls, will not go in vain. Affectionate, intelligent, embracing, extraordinary Alex. Brilliant, outspoken, youthful, delightful Boyd. Knowledgeable, nature lover, interesting, gentle, helpful, talented, supportive Knight. A woman who lived to give, who was not afraid of change, who taught grace and determination, one whose words, recipes, jokes, and advice will live on long after she's gone. So I extend my deepest sympathy to her entire family, especially Deputy Speaker Honorable Philip Rule, and may her soul rest in eternal peace.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for the opportunity to pay tribute to one of the most towering figures of public life in Dominica over the last 25 years, Speaker Emerita, Mrs. Alex Boyd Knights. Mr. Speaker, the likes of Alex Boyd Knights we will not see again in our lifetime. Mrs. Knight served as Speaker of the House with honor. Her mastery of standing orders of the House made her a formidable advocate. Though I had not known her for an extended period, I had the privilege to meet and converse with her during my first sitting of Parliament. Alice Boyd Knight was the first celebrity Speaker of the House of Assembly. She brought glitz and glamour to the role. Very early in her record-breaking reign, Pomp and pageantry was introduced at the start of every new parliamentary year. Women were obliged to wear hats, while men were to wear jackets and tie. It was also during her tenure as Speaker that television cameras were brought into the chamber for the first time. But Alex Boyd Knight's influence transcended politics. She was a tireless campaigner and champion of women's rights. For decades, she fought and secured legislative changes to laws pertaining to domestic violence against women, child abuse, family laws, and land laws. Beyond politics, her legal practice, and her social advocacy work, Alex Boyd Knight became famous for her passion for culinary arts. At this juncture, let me inform that just a few weeks ago, Mrs. Knight invited me to her house in Trafalgar. She promised to make me a sweet potato pie. Regrettably, I never made it. It is entirely fitting that Senator Philip Rule, her grandson, is here in this chamber to continue her legacy. She is gone, but because of her sheer longevity in the office of Speaker, the impact she had on past and present members of this House, her spirit will loom in this chamber and indeed the entire country for many years to come. The parliamentary opposition and myself wishes to extend our deepest condolences to the immediate family, the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and friends of Mrs. Knight. May her soul of Speaker Emerita, Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Honorable parliamentary colleagues, family, and friends of the late Speaker Emeritus Alex Boyd Knight, listeners, Dominicans far and wide, the media. It is an enormous challenge to come to terms with the inevitable sting of death. Our country was in shock, pressing pain, and profound sorrow upon hearing of the sudden passing of Speaker Emeritus and Attorney Alex Boyd Knight. It is in such times we see the deficiency and impotence of words itself to explain the true nature of the human condition. Let me take this opportunity to extend my most sincere condolences to the family and loved ones of the deceased Mrs. Knight. I do so on behalf of myself, my family, and the constituents of the Roseau South. May you find strength from the Almighty in this most challenging time. Be confronted in the hope of life beyond the grave, for death itself is a transition. My first physical interaction with the late Speaker Emeritus was when I was sworn in Parliament in 2019. I too remembered that she summoned me to her office because at that time we had the most women in Parliament. And Speaker Emeritus was very excited and elated because that was something that she fought for, and it finally became a reality. Not too long, Mrs. Knight graced us with her immaculate presence, sound intellect, fierce discipline, powerful leadership, deep passion, and revered equity within these very chambers. She was amongst the longest serving and most distinguished Speaker of the House within the Commonwealth Caribbean. She served us in this capacity from 2000 to 2020. Speaker Emeritus received many accolades and was also the chairperson of the Women Parliamentarians within the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. I shall remember Speaker Emeritus as a powerful advocate for the rights of Caribbean women, family life, and the rights of the child. A critical part of a lasting legacy is playing a pivotal role in influencing the creation and implementation of policy leading to the passing of legislation relating to the family. She was one who championed for gender equity and was a most potent voice for the less fortunate women in our communities. We are also aware of her firmness and concrete knowledge in the application and interpretation of rules of parliament. Her life was one of wisdom, skill, honesty, example, and scholarship. She shall be missed by all who were fortunate enough to be blessed by her presence and influence. May her soul rest in peace.
Mr. Speaker, me too, I rise to, on behalf of my wife and myself, to express my sincere condolences to the family through the Deputy Speaker of the House on the passing of a champion, a great leader, a great Dominican. Mr. Speaker, in 2000, January 2000, when I resigned to run for elective office in the field of politics, while I was still processing what madness I had done to myself, I got a call from the Speaker of the House. And a couple of days thereafter, I got a call from the leader of the Dominican Labour Party, and I was told that you are being launched in Mao tonight. And the guest speaker was the former Speaker of the House. And from then on, we were very cool. And it's a reminder for us when someone, irrespective of that person's social space, passes on as to the reality of life on earth. And that our physical presence on earth is just one phase of the evolutionary process of life. So it seems to me, therefore, what we do by way of a legacy is very important for the shaping of others to follow. And as we heard from the Prime Minister, the Speaker of the House, she actually evolved as a young person at a time when women, in particular, were going through more trying times than now, when society was more endlessly male-ordered. And she had to battle and fight and to lead the cause in the liberation of women. And we have seen the manifestation, Mr. Speaker, in some of the gains we have seen from women because of the hard work from people like this former Speaker of the House, may her soul rest in peace. Because it was not easy then for women. It's not easy today. And I think that so very often, the things that we take for granted, the gains and we have seen in our laws, the liberties that we enjoy, that we take for granted, are as a result of the sacrifices made by personalities like the former Speaker of the House. There's a saying that some people did not like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, but they loved the results of the sacrifices. The same, therefore, can be said for the Speaker of the House. I can recall, Mr. Speaker, the Speaker for a number of instances when she called me, and sometimes she liked Beth, to share Beth, but most time was to give me counsel and to banter with me on the phone. Once she felt that the registry, in particular, she always called me about the registry, that things could have been done differently. And once she felt that some people were not being served because of the social space they occupy in society, she would call me and say to me why the police are not serving that person. And I think those are the things I think that people like the Speaker of the House need to be recalled for. As the Prime Minister made reference to, and I wanted to speak about that briefly, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, recently we passed a number of family bills. And I can recall the Speaker calling me and insisting that we had to ensure that a particular measure was inserted any definition of a particular clause. And that was the kind of person the Speaker of the House was all about. It wasn't for herself, but she fought for the upliftment of others, especially women who have been trod upon by men who believe that somehow within our psyches that women are inadequate to us. And the role therefore belongs to the kitchen and to make to the house and to make babies. And I believe that the Speaker of the House has demonstrated that that's not the case, that women are equally competent in every respect as the male partner. And she has to be celebrated for that. I can recall, Mr. Speaker, when we actually had this measure before this Parliament, when we made a significant overhaul to the Sexual Offences Act, and there was a measure that a number of people, that is why up to today, when I go to service, some people cannot get me Holy Communion because of what they said to me when a measure was being inserted in the law that, and I shall say it, because my age right now, God can take me whenever He wants, that men can rape their wives and women can rape the husband. And men, because of somehow they believe that women are still endlessly a sexual object. Because that measure, incidentally, which really freaked me out, is a gender-neutral measure, because women know that women are more or less the victim of rape. And they said, well, you know, pastors and priests, if you were to do that, you see, is no women going to take the foot on man. Can you imagine that? That to me was a telling matter. And people like Alex Boyd Knight insisted that that measure had to be inserted in the law, and people like her must be commended for this very progressive insertion into our legislation, Mr. Speaker. And as a result, I went to England with her about 7 years ago, being invited by the Commonwealth Secretariat, and I was really impressed and taken aback by the embrace that she got from one and sundry, from the West African continent, across the Caribbean, and in England itself, that everybody knew the Speaker and what she stood for. I pray for the family. May her soul rest in peace. And let us, especially men and women alike, embrace those great values that actually the Speaker of the House embodied and exemplified. May her soul rest in peace. And it is an honor for me to have known the Speaker of the House. For a matter of fact, we spoke just a couple of weeks before she passed on. And I'm happy that I have a photograph of she and myself at the Jordan Flower Show when I saw and I said, you had a beautiful green dress, and we took a photograph together. That will serve to me, Mr. Speaker, as something eternal by way of memory of the Speaker of the House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, on behalf of my family, as well as the constituents of the Roseau Valley, I'd like to express my deepest condolences and most sincere sympathy to the entire family of Speaker Emerita Alex Boyd Knight, and particularly to our Deputy Speaker, Philip Roll. Mr. Speaker, the entire community of Trafalgar have lost a very powerful person in our midst. Speaker Emerita has touched many of us in the constituency. And let alone the constituency, she has also touched many lives in the Commonwealth of Dominica for her advocacy for women and children's rights. And she pioneering the activities related to gender-based violence. For this, she'll always be remembered. And we could actually see the significance of her efforts earlier this year in April, when we passed our 5 family bills. And obviously, her indulgence and her deliberations in the past is definitely one of the guiding factors in those 5 family bills that were passed in April. Mr. Speaker, to get to Speaker Emerita House, you'd have to pass through my family home as well. So that sort of afforded me the opportunity to engage with her frequently, extensively, but also being a beneficiary of her passion and her love for the kitchen and cooking. So I actually enjoyed many of her meals and her snacks and her dishes. The condition was I'd have to bring back the plate, which on a few occasions I forgot, and I was reminded by her that I'd have to get back the plate if I were to get any more. And but also it's just the way that Speaker Emerita just focused so much on using local ingredients and produce in her dishes. And this is something we should really take very seriously as to how we eat what we grow. And she forever mentioned this, and she emphasized that point about eating what we grow. And this is all part of her legacy, besides her advocacy for children and women's rights and pioneering gender-based violence issues. But this is also a very significant part of her legacy, that we should eat what we grow, which says a lot of the sort of person she was. Also, Mr. Speaker, you could also see the pride when she spoke about her flower garden and her different exotic fruits in her garden and what it meant to her. As a matter of fact, it was from her flower garden that my wife would get flowers for decorating their school graduation, and she'd always be willing to give flowers from her garden. Obviously, she'd supervise the plucking of the flowers and the picking of the flowers, but nonetheless, she was always willing. So, Speaker Alex Boyd Knight, a very complete person in the sense of her fight for the social evils in our society, in terms of, from a nutritional point of view, in terms of what the kitchen means to the entire nuclear family, and also just in terms of her flower garden, her fruit trees. So that just tells you what a complete individual we've lost. And with this, I think if we can just take those things forward, her legacy can live on. So these few words, deeply sympathy to you, Deputy Speaker, and the entire family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I stand to extend deepest condolences to the family and the relatives of Speaker Emeritus, and more especially to Comrade Philip. We all know that Madam Speaker is a stalwart for justice, but more importantly, I had a few conversations with her regarding indigenous women and their rights and responsibilities, and I hold those conversations very dear. I believe that as a complete individual, she was able to see beyond color, creed, race, and that I think is an important part of what we do here as the business of parliamentarians. So I really want to extend the best condolences to the family and friends, and those of us who have had the opportunity to learn from her wisdom, and I'm hoping that we could use these and other interactions to become better members of Parliament and better human beings. Mr. Speaker, permit me also to extend deepest condolences to the family and friends of former parliamentary representative for Salivia, Francois Barry. He was my former school teacher. He have taught many throughout the Kainagu space in his over 30 years of teaching experience. He was also a family man, and I do know his children personally, Fitz, Brinsley, and his daughter Berfia. Mr. Barry is also what you would call an avid cricketer, and what I dub a cricket historian. And so I remember spending some time with him during 2011, doing some research and learning from his wisdom of his understanding of cricketing and his love for sports. So the Cyber constituency will definitely miss this gentleman. He also served as a justice of the peace and served as someone who inspired a number of people. Mr. Speaker, we're mindful that in the course of our deliberations as parliamentarians that we have to for the most part, move beyond personal beliefs and also personal ambitions, and also look towards developing the whole. And I speak specifically to developing our country on a whole. And so I believe that both Mr. Barry and Madam Speaker would have done their share in ensuring that our wonderful Commonwealth, or the Republic, the Dominican space, continues to thrive within the ambits of democracy. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to share that space that these two wonderful people would have shared at various points in their life, in their careers, and also to bring honor to the office that we hold as parliamentarians. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I must take the opportunity to place on record my condolences to the family of the former Speaker, the Speaker Emerita, all of her daughters, her extended wider family, and indeed our colleague in the House, the Deputy Speaker of the House, Mr. Rood. I served in this House for almost a decade with the Speaker. We had many conversations, and as has been said by all the previous speakers, the former Speaker was not somebody who was shy to express her views and her opinions. A good thing about her was that you knew where she stood. She would tell you her views. You could agree, you could disagree. We engaged on many conversations, and oftentimes, as happens during the proceedings of the House, there are matters that arise, and sometimes she has her views, and on some occasions she would call me to discuss those views and get my views on those matters for the benefit of the House, and of course, by extension, for the benefit of the nation. And as has already been said, she was someone who traveled the world extensively, engaging in various meetings, conferences, and as you will know, Mr. Speaker, she was very active in the CPA, very well known, very highly respected in the CPA, and she represented Dominica extremely well in that forum. I've heard a number of stories, Mr. Speaker. I don't propose to give any detailed story. I suspect my stories, the few that I have, would not be as exciting as those that we heard. But there's one that always comes to mind when I have conversations as regards the former Speaker. An interaction we had in our legal practices. She, as was said earlier, was representing the wife in a matrimonial matter, and I was representing the husband. And we, of course, had various communications prior to a particular hearing. And the day came that we were at the court. It's a preliminary hearing, as it were. And we were waiting our turn to be called into chambers with the judge. And we engaged, as lawyers frequently do, in consultation prior to going into the hearing, with a view to seeing whether we could come to some form of compromise to